We're live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook friends and family. And again, welcome to all of our friends in the Zoom room. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and of course, it's Straight Talk on Friday night, May 21st, 2021. And we're dealing with, I think, as an important a topic as ever. We're going to be talking about the challenges that impact all of us. Anybody watching this has been impacted by depression, addiction, alcoholism, perhaps even suicidal fantasies. We've been impacted because maybe we've had those experiences or are currently having some of those experiences, or we're impacted because people we love have dealt with those or are dealing with those. So we're going to tackle it in a number of different ways. And I just want to start by saying that I'm really proud of the people who are stepping forward to participate. This is an entire weekend that we're dedicating to it, starting with tonight's Straight Talk, and then tomorrow night, Saturday Night Live, and then Sunday's Secret Sunday show. And it's going to extend out. We're actually going to be doing a week from tonight, a follow-up show with wholehearted.org, and then they're sponsoring an entire weekend again in July. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm going to bring on my teaching partner and one of my dearest friends, Trish. And Trish, I'd just like to have you share kind of some of your thoughts about these topics.
About addiction?
Addiction,
Hi,
depression,
everyone.
suicidal fantasies, all that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Straight Talk. It's Friday night. And here we are bringing the real, like we always do. Scott, I really think that the world we live in is particularly disconnected. That there's a lot of places where we've created a society or ways that we are socialized to create disconnection. Parental neglect or over parenting or whatever you want to call it often creates these places where we're seeking something outside of ourselves, and our society isn't teaching us healthy, safe coping skills, so we're seeking out things that we, as children, trying to find ways to get our needs met. And sometimes we fall into places or we seek out places that have communities around them. And I mean, I know that I got into communities around drug use. I was Burning Man, my entire burner community, parties like this plur community, the peace, love, unity, respect. I was like, wow, that's something that I want to have, invest in, because that's what I want. That's part of my value system. And, ecstasy and gosh, I mean, psychedelics, and then cocaine, and then, luckily I never got into heroin or methamphetamines, thank God. Like, none of my people really went down that path, though there were people in my life who were starting to smoke coke. And I was like, whoa, okay, maybe I should reevaluate it. And, to be honest, just as another thought is that alcohol, like, okay, first let's get clear. I think that childhood trauma is is the thing that points us into the way of finding coping skills, finding community, finding places of belonging, aka whatever we're looking for. And then we go into places like the things that we can do: smoking, alcohol. We're like, oh, those are legal things. Or sex. I mean, who's been addicted to that? And so we start to seek those places out because our society isn't really teaching us coping skills or how to belong or finding connection in those places. And guess what we find? Fun and new feelings and connections and communities surrounded around, stimulants or depressants. So just on that note, and then coming back to this, feeling super disconnected. I've been suicidal. I was on Prozac in my early, like late teens, early 20s. And because I didn't have any places to go with, like, My car caught on fire right before I went to college. My mentors were murdered in Oregon by a serial killer. And my parents weren't talking to me because I didn't take a full ride scholarship to the state school. And my boyfriend dumped me. What was I supposed to do with all of that information? What was
Hmm.
I supposed to do with that? I didn't have, so what, I didn't feel like I had any reason to live because I was so sad. I was just so sad and nobody was there to support me or give me direction on where to go because they didn't have any of that either. So guess what I found? Alcohol, drugs. I mean, these are my thoughts on my own experience, just totally random. Sorry, y'all. Thanks for listening. But I think that our society really creates separation and doesn't give us tools for connection. And I'm really excited to hear what the next people have to say. Annie?
All right. Well, I am putting on the screen someone I've known for a really long time. Annie, how long have we known each other? What do you think?
I'm going to say 1990. Could it be 98 or 6 or 7 or somewhere in there?
Mid 90s.
Mid 90s, yeah.
Mid 90s, definitely. Yeah, because that's when I was hanging out with Shamil and Alan and Son and Brett, and that's kind of how I remember meeting you.
Oh yeah, oh sure, much earlier than that. Yeah,
so I think even earlier. Yeah, mid 90s. Well, for those of you who haven't known Annie since 1990 something, let me tell you a little bit about her. Annie's passion has always been to help people discover their own power to heal and achieve. From the age of 15, she was working with facilitating encounter groups, and she quickly grew into a master teacher, working nationally in over 150 cities to train others to help people be their best. While she was a patient at Dr. Hitt's clinic in Mexico, Anne learned of a new treatment, neurotransmitter restoration. We'll be referring to that as NTR tonight. And she saw that it was having tremendous success in helping people deal with addiction. It was later discovered to be NAD+. Anne brought the protocols for NAD therapy from Mexico to the West Coast. And in 2010, she started working with other early pioneers of NAD, and she created the first testimonial videos, reaching over 500,000 people globally. Anne recruited physicians to develop clinics where people could experience NAD treatment as a strategy for brain restoration and a quicker, more effective detox. She's emerged as the leading spokesperson for NAD, and she retains strong relationships with the leading medical providers of this treatment. Recently, Anne was contacted by a pharmacy in Beverly Hills that had discovered how to maintain the potency of NAD using a transdermal patch that produces results similar to the 4, but at a fraction of the cost. Since this discovery, Anne has transitioned into sharing this new, quote, alive NAD product for addiction and aging and stress. Annie, God bless you. What a wonderful service you're doing for our world. And we'll show the little video in a moment, but is there anything you want to kind of share about what you're doing and anything to set up the video we're about to see?
Well, I wanted to give a slight history in that I was also part of the Burning Man culture. And it's interesting because if those who know Patrick Flanagan, many, many years ago, Patrick Flanagan and I were talking about, well, all these people who do these mind-altering substances, they deplete their body nutritionally. And we were talking about, it would be really good for people to be educated about what they're doing to their body, what they need to take nutritionally to rebalance their body, how to detox off what they're doing, what are the things that they're doing mixed with, how does it affect your physiology, all these nutritional aspects of substance use, abuse, whatever it ends up being for an individual. And it's just so interesting that it was when I was at the HIT clinic and I saw that there were some Hollywood luminaries that were coming down there to detox, some famous people who got off their drugs and alcohol. And when I was in San Diego, I thought I had started a vitamin IV center at a clinic there. And I thought, let's go down and get this, find out about this treatment. So we brought it up to California. I found other colleagues in Louisiana had been doing this since 2002, but nobody knew about NAD therapy. Nobody had heard of it. And all of a sudden, I'm detoxing heroin addicts, cold turkey, alcohol, cold turkey, and it's almost effortless. And people actually feel reconnected to their soul and to their who they are. And so I found myself diving full head into detox for the last 11 years using IV NAD therapy. And it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, as you'll see in the video. I took that video of all those people. This is back when we've been doing IV therapy since, my colleagues since 2002, me since 2010. And the video is about the IV therapy. We wanted to create a new video about this new discovery that we've made. And I want to share it because the problem with the IV therapy is it's extraordinarily expensive. So now you can get NAD therapy at almost every spa. Most holistic doctors' offices that do IV therapy do NAD therapy. It's very popular now for anti-aging and for stress, depression, anxiety, and of course for addiction. And I might add that in all these 11 years, we cold turkey everybody. We've never had a seizure on the extraordinary levels of alcohol, mind you. I mean, if they went to the hospital, they would have had a seizure, because NAD seems to cool the brain off and calm everything down. I say it's like a fire hose on the brain. It just takes the inflammation out of the brain and people just can slide off their medication. Of course, that's only one tool in a whole set of things that are each person's individual journey. But NAD is a major, major discovery. And the video we're going to see is about the IV therapy part of NAD, and which goes for anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a day. So it's very cost prohibitive. And it wasn't until recently when this Beverly Hills Concierge Pharmacy contacted me and said, we want you to check out our patches. And I thought, patches, they don't do anything. They're very weak. NAD patches don't really do much. However, theirs came frozen and it was intriguing. And after 6 of these patches, you just transdermally put them on your skin. I said to myself, I don't think I'm ever doing IV therapy again. And I closed my clinic and I went, this is affordable. This is for $50. Now people can actually get NAD and it's incredible for almost anybody, anybody truly, for anti-aging because it declines with age, and for stress, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, detox, all the above. So you can see the results of the NAD from the video, which is very stunning and exciting. But now I'm excited because we have a way of delivering it that isn't so cost prohibitive, So feel free to share that video.
Look, here we go. Yep. and again, thank you. Thank you for your service. Really, really, I love you. I'm so proud of you. All right, here we go. Let's see what Annie's talking about.
I haven't felt this way since I was 20 years old. I just feel great. I have all this energy.
I absolutely feel like a new person.
It's brand new. I'm like looking at life with a new pair of eyes, it's great.
I've been a nurse in the field of addiction for the past 7 years. The detox process is unbelievable. I've seen opiates, benzo addicts, alcoholics, amphetamine users, all of the above detox in a outpatient setting with minimal discomfort.
I'm on day 7 and I haven't felt like this in 12, 13 years.
People who are so debilitated, who come in ultimately so stressed, just in the period of 10 days, become new become new people. It's unbelievable to see them become just someone else. I don't, or what they used to be prior to 20 years of drug usage. There's no words that you can put to describe it.
I was on painkillers for 12, 13 years and pretty much convinced myself I was nocturnal, and since I've been on this, I have a normal sleeping habit. I was really happy about that. I find myself singing to myself. I've never done that. Just real positive attitude since about day 3. Everything just started spinning around. When I came here and they were telling me you think better and see colors clear, and I was like, yeah, and I'll have super speed and flight and won't be bothered by kryptonite, and then I kind of kicked myself because I was wrong and they were right, and this has actually been a real turning point for me. I don't know how to praise this any more than that.
The agony is not there in the actual detoxing, but the end result is even more beautiful, and that is that you get clarity of mind like you've never ever experienced if you have a long-term addiction.
My mind is clearer than it's been in 30 years. I'm 63 years old. My mind is clearer than it's ever been in 30 years.
And the third day, he was like, I don't want pills anymore. I have no desire. And then day 4, and he was like, I could see his personality coming back. You know, because pills will do that. Whatever, alcohol, whatever you take, it will change your personality.
Last 20 years, I was a heroin addict. I have overdosed twice. I have been detoxed 10 different times. I have been to uncountable amounts of rehabs, more than the 10 times that I had been detoxed. I had used methadone for 3 years. I used the drugs over it. I tried Suboxone for 2 years, wound up using the drug over it. I never could get rid of my addiction due to my cravings, the overwhelming craving voices in my head. Since I've used the Brain Restoration Plus, I have not had a craving. I have not used. It's been a year and a half, and I believe my mind gets stronger by the day from it.
I just can't explain how miraculous the treatment was. I have no cravings whatsoever. I'm happy. I'm not depressed. I've suffered from anxiety and depression since I was a teenager.
I see the brightness in their eyes light up. It's like the light is on. They're back.
And he's positive. He's himself. He's back.
10 little days. That's it.
Wow. Wow.
Oh.
844-NAD-therapy, or go to brainrestorationtherapy.com. brainrestorationtherapy.com.
I'm actually migrating it over to nadtherapy.com now.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Yeah, I've been saving the website, but now it's kind of ready to use because now it's something that can be available to everybody, not just people going through detox. You
Right.
know?
Well, I'll pull that up because you had actually given this to me the other day. So here's the proper phone number. www.nadtherapy.com. And really, everybody write that down. Come on, we all know somebody who's struggling. We all know somebody who, that high, whatever it is, alcohol, Coke, whatever it is, that high is just really, really yummy. And they're struggling with letting it go. And so Annie, somebody's watching our show, they go, okay, I need this, or my brother needs it, or my wife needs it. And they reach out to you. What's the next step? What ends up happening?
Well, every person's different. Some are functional, some have clear intention that they want to quit. NAD just gets you across the river. It gets you across the river fast and with not very messy. It's very quick. The challenge is that some people need a lot more structure. They need an environment that they can go to that has support, has love. It's a timeout. They not only detox, but now they become therapeutically available. So instead of going to rehab and craving the entire time and can't wait to get out to go use, we try to speed that process up. So bring them back to themselves, and now they can look at their addiction like a third person. They can see themselves, and they have that therapeutic time to make the changes they need to do, because it doesn't change the habit. It doesn't change the emotions or the programming or the things that caused it to begin with. It's just a tool to speed the process up, bring somebody into a place of clarity so they can start to look at their process, their addiction in a new way, and now they can make the changes they need to make. We've been doing this, the patches, this new patch, we call it Alive NAD because it's made fresh daily, it's flash frozen, and it's shipped on dry ice overnight. And you take it out of your freezer, you put it on a patch, and it just comes alive. So we've been doing this for about 2 months now with people for detox and for aftercare. It's extraordinary for aftercare, by the way. If anybody has detoxed in the past, it's an amazing tool for them to use because when your NAD levels up higher, for whatever reason, addicts who've had a really hard time, when they have normal NAD levels, they have control. They have a lot more impulse control. They have more clarity. They have more energy, less depressed. It gives them some room to work on themselves. It gives them a way to work on themselves and not be so overly burdened by the addiction. And what we found is the alcohol had been amazing, almost 100% success. The only ones that weren't successful didn't have a companion with them. We highly recommend that anybody who's doing an outpatient type of detox have a companion, that they don't work, that they go on retreat, and they can do it. They can do it pretty effectively. The opiate addicts, on the other hand, have done NAD and they get very excited because they feel so much better. And they taper and they taper and they taper. And I like to tell them, listen, NAD won't make you quit. You have to quit. But if you do want to quit, NAD will make that transition very fast and much smoother for you. The challenge I've had with some of the opiate addicts is they fall in love with the NAD because it takes care of some of the negative aspects of their use, and they taper down, they get to a very low dose. But to go through that final stage it's really a personal journey. It's a spiritual transformation. You have to surrender, you have to let go, you have to go down, you have to retreat. You have to stop working. And so if people are not committed to stop working, stop using, go on retreat, get a companion and go through your kick, then it's not going to work for them, but it will make them feel a lot better. So that's what we're learning about the opiates, because when you're on an IV, you're tethered to a pole for 8 hours a day. You have a nurse, you have therapists, you have people around you. There's a shift in your lifestyle. There's a whole program going on. You know, there's people that are there encouraging you. You go have dinner, you go home, you go to sleep, you come back. So it's a pattern interrupt to do the IV. And the IV is highly effective. It's just at $10,000 or $12,000, it just becomes very cost prohibitive. But with the patches, we have detoxed successfully a Suboxone. I'm so proud of her for doing it, actually. And she did it on her own, which is extraordinary. And we don't recommend that. We recommend that people either do it in a treatment center where there's support and structure, or they do it with a companion on retreat and they actually commit to quitting under supervision of a doctor. But the patches make the whole process so much more doable, so much more possible. Wow.
So I just want to jump in for a second for the people who don't quite understand detox, or impulse control. Let's talk about it on an impulse control. We're just going to talk it for other people for impulse control. Mm-hmm. That, you know, when you're sitting on the couch and you've got the donuts and they're like in the cupboard and you're like, oh fuck, I want the cupboard, I want the donuts, and then you're like really holding back on that. Well, there's certain chemicals that create neural pathways in your brain. So we're little rats going for dopamine. It just is, we're just humans. We want the dopamine rush. And that's what we get addicted to, is the feeling of, and which is, dopamine also creates things like the feelings of connection or love, or, when you hug someone, like there's a lot of actual physical things. So when we don't have that, like she said that there's reasons why the IV actually works, because you're taking yourself from your habitual routine. And then you also have a lot of attention on you, which you get a lot of, like, you're like, oh God, I get support and all these things. Now, the fact that it helps you detox off of Suboxone, and I just want to talk a little bit about what I know, is profound. Mm-hmm. Now, so opiates hold a very specific neural pathway in your brain. And for anyone who's never tried opiates, good for you. But it makes you feel like everything's okay until you need more of it. And then you feel like, I'm going to fucking die. My whole body hurts. Everything is just not okay. It's like anxiety multiplied by Armageddon.
It's true.
And then you're like, oh my God. And that particular neural pathway is really hard to I'm going to say fill. And because we process that so quickly. Now, Suboxone and methadone, both created chemically in a lab, which almost, I've always thought about it as having like hooks in it, because to detox off of those government created chemicals, it is so hard. And I worked at 3 ibogaine centers in Mexico, which I know this is not the show for that, but there I saw a lot that I had never seen before. Like I was like, this is my purpose, I'm gonna go help people. This was not my purpose, and I did not have the emotional skills to help people. I can tell you, I can be really honest there. But what I found is that people who really wanted to detox did. People who were going there to, please someone else went back to their old lives and their old habits, went back to it. And the people who were on methadone or Suboxone had even if they wanted to, struggled so hard because of that particular chemical, right? So I'm super excited to hear more about how it restructures the neural pathways, how it really holds, because if they're detoxing, which if you've been doing drugs for a long time, your intestines and your organs have overworked. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, one thing I want to say about Suboxone and methadone, obviously they're way up there. It's 13 to 16 days with the IV for NAD versus heroin, which is 10. Alcohol, maybe 8. Suboxone and methadone are very, very difficult. However, in this day and age with fentanyl running around, it might be the difference between someone dying or not, because they won't die on Suboxone. They will die on fentanyl, whether they think they want to or not, because it's just hit or miss. When they mix in a blender, they did a study with a blender where they put the fentanyl in blue, and when they cut these pills, they showed the blender, and when they're cutting these pills, some pills hardly have any fentanyl in it, and some have enough to kill you. And they can't tell when they're blending this together, the people who are making this, right? That's why people inadvertently just die on fentanyl. And it happened to one of our staff people's son, who took a Xanax that was laced with fentanyl off the street after snowboarding to go to bed and never woke up. And, it's a very different world out there in the way of opiates and heroin. And so Suboxone, for people who don't have support, don't have, it's a lifesaver for some people who don't have an alternative or don't have the support to get past their heroin addiction. At least they're not going to die. But getting off the Suboxone and methadone is a whole other thing, right? And in the same way that ibogaine and NAD being a natural occurring thing in our body, as one pharmacist friend says, NAD was here when the first bacteria on the planet was here. It's responsible for our DNA repair. It's responsible for hundreds of metabolic processes in our body. NAD is something that declines with age, and is extremely low in alcoholics and drug addicts. When you bring their NAD level up, they actually feel like a normal person again. And so we call it an NAD deficiency disease, actually, because it's extraordinary how when you normalize someone's NAD that they become way more functional. But with a Suboxone, just like with ibogaine, those two things lock into the opiate receptor sites and kick off the drug, And so they're the only two things I know of actually that will do that. But of course, very different people would qualify for those two different processes, right?
Well, it's very dangerous and it could kill you.
Yes. Yeah.
Straight up, it kills people because they're just their body can't handle that level of detox.
Yeah. Well, so for some reason, the NAD is extremely safe, which is amazing because we know of no negative side effects, which is saying a lot because almost everything has a negative side effect. But NAD just tends to be all good. If you have too much NAD and you can't process it, you might get a headache. Or if you're on an IV, you'll get stomach, you'll feel a rush in your stomach or whatnot, or cramps and whatnot. But you just slow down the IV and that goes away. With the patches, the reason why I love those is it goes in so smooth and so immediate. I took somebody out of full-blown opiate withdrawal in 10 minutes, just throwing 2 patches on their body. Boom, it's gone. The crawling skin gone, right? Another lady put the patches on her at 9 o'clock at night. She was doing a opiate detox, and of course she had fentanyl. Every opiate addict right now does have fentanyl in their system. And I got there the next day, and she was in full-blown withdrawal. And I'm like, when was your last patch? 9 o'clock last night. I still have them on. I'm like, your patches are dead. There's nothing left in them. So we just threw 2 patches on, boom, right there. Within 15 minutes, she was completely normal and felt great again. So it's very powerful medicine, what we have. One of the health practitioners up north calls it, put spiritual awakening on the list for NAD, because it does seem to just wake people back up again. And it brings your soul back into your body. There's a medical psychic who believes strongly that NAD is really important for waking people back up again, bringing them back into their normal state. But Suboxone, and I hate to go against it, even though I used to be adamantly against it, because it's just another opiate, a synthetic opiate, and it's one that's even harder to detox off of than heroin. But at this day and age, it's so dangerous right now. It's never been like this. People are dying right and left off heroin because it's mixed with fentanyl, and one shot and they're gone. And it's happening. I mean, just the physician we work with lost 3 people just a week ago, he works also in certain treatment centers and whatnot. And so, it's a deadly world in the opiate world. So the more that there is new methods, because people want to wake up. I always used to feel that people take drugs because they want to experience something greater, something deeper, something more profound. It numbed out their pain, and that allowed them just be themselves, like people who drink alcohol and they feel like they can be themselves because they numbed something out, right? So I think of drug addicts as seekers. I've always never threw them all in the same. I can't throw them all in the same truck because I'm an adventurer. I've done my ayahuasca and I've done everything to expand my consciousness. I just never did synthetics, and I feel like, we're at a place where shame and judgment and all that is not working, treating people,
Yes.
it's just not working. And so I say to people, listen, I don't care what you're taking, but if you want to get off, we'll help you get off, right? We'll find the fastest way down the mountain, but then what are you going to do when you get down the mountain, right? Because you don't want to go through this journey unless you're really ready to go all the way. It's like the Matrix. You take the pill, be ready to wake up on the other end of the pill, right? So
I have a question.
Yeah.
For those people, okay, so another little story is like, I have a very, very dear friend whose son was a college football player, and he had a kid and a wife, and he blew out both of his knees, had like knee surgery. The doctors, of course, gave him opiates. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And he recently passed, and left this whole family. But he always had wanted, I tried to get off, but now I'm in so much pain. Does NAD have any, does it help at all with any pain?
It totally. And that's the other thing that's just really mind-blowing about this new discovery is it is one of the best things for pain that I've ever seen. I know there's somebody on the call here would say that they use it for pain, if they were to share. But the patches, for whatever reason, more than the IV, works dramatically on pain. So it's better than the opiate for pain.
Yes.
I don't know why exactly that is, but hey, as long as it's natural and it works, that's what matters, right? It's still too expensive in the grand scheme of things, but boy, 1/20 or less of the cost of IV. So we're heading in the right direction,
Well,
So,
how much is a detox, going to a center to detox? How much is going to for a week of Ibogaine? How much is like getting drugs off the street? Like, come on. Whoa,
yes,
whoa. Hold
yes,
on.
yes. Oh yeah. No, I've known many people that spend several $100s a day on heroin and drugs. Yes, yes. So it's not even anywhere near that. But
Honestly, Annie, I just spent $500 on a massage to help my knee. If it helps with pain, I'm like, for how much? I'm sorry, what?
yeah, and everybody's really different. I take a very small 200 milligrams. It works for ADD. That's why I actually wanted to recruit it from Mexico for myself, was for ADD. And my dad had Alzheimer's. My grandmother, I heard it was good for your brain. And of course, once I did it, there was no looking back. And then I detoxed my godson off heroin, and it was like science fiction. It was just like he was a new kid. Just like overnight, I have a new kid, so I was pretty hooked because nobody knew about it, and I couldn't let it go because it's just too amazing. But the cost thing is a problem. So now the patches make it affordable that even rehabs can start doing NAD in treatment, which is a great environment because there's some therapy and there's some massage, hopefully, and there's, some support for people,
Mm.
I want to ask you a couple of questions that are coming from our chat box. And again, thank you everybody who's in our Zoom room. We've got a lot of our friends with us, and it's good to see all of you. So the first question is from Ben. He says, is NAD therapy something you could take if you've been sober for years and are not? Yeah, so you don't have to be in detox or craving therapies.
Oh, it's fantastic for alcohol. Alcohol is your number one thing with NAD. It's just number one, because if you put on NAD IV, however you do it, and you drink, crashes your NAD level instantly. So, and the difference, it seems to be, from alcoholics and other people who drink alcohol, alcoholics don't reproduce their NAD the next morning. Normal people will have a glass of wine, they wake up and they regenerate their NAD. Alcoholics don't. And when they drink, it just plummets, their NAD level plummet. NAD, by the way, looking in the chat room, stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a coenzyme of niacin. It's made from niacin, and it's also made from tryptophan, and it's naturally occurring in our mitochondria. It's as important as oxygen is to our cells, NAD. And if we were to create a medical category for it, we would call these diseases NAD deficiency disorders, because you can't believe how many people when they become an addict, they lie, cheat, steal, and do the whole number. You give them NAD, and all of a sudden now they'll tell you all of their sins. They'll tell you the truth about everything that they've done, and they're very honest, and they're very connected to their soul. So we just want to see people's NAD level go back to normal who have ever used. And if you've been an alcoholic, or you are an alcoholic but don't drink, it's extraordinary. For you'll probably feel the response much quicker than other people.
Honestly, I want to get some. I don't consider myself an alcoholic.
I know, I was going to ship you some before the show, but I didn't have time.
I tell you, I want some, because I'm going through a thing where I'm really trying not to drink alcohol, because I notice when I drink it, is what you said, when I drink alcohol now, less and less alcohol, and more in the morning, it's harder to get up. Like, I'm not talking about feeling hungover, but 2 glasses of wine, and the next morning I can feel just dense and dull, and it's not worth it. But
yeah,
I miss the buzz, I miss the,
Well, I hate to say it, but this actually creates a new buzz. Because we laugh about it. I remember going to a cabaret with a bunch of doctors after I just had NAD, and they asked what you wanted to drink, and I just couldn't for the life of me think of anything that sounded good. Nothing sounded good, because NAD and alcohol don't.
That's great.
It just doesn't get along somehow. Yeah. They don't relate. It's not that you couldn't. It's just that you just feel better.
Well, as Nancy just said, it sounds like everyone could use this to pull up our energy and general disposition. That's right. That's right, Nancy.
Especially as you age, you decline with NAD. Yeah.
Now, we're going to come back to Annie, because obviously she's fascinating. But I want to introduce somebody else who I don't know. But he wrote to me, and I really appreciated what he shared. And this is Damien. And hi, Damien. Thank you
Hi,
for
Scott.
joining us. What do you think so far? Like, as you're listening to what Anna's sharing, what goes on for you?
It sounds miraculous, really. It sounds like something the world has really been waiting for and wanting. And I'd love to try it myself, actually. Although I've found, some other pathways that are producing, some similar results, which I'm gonna speak about. But yeah, it's really like I'm marveling at our levels of understanding the human body enough to address the core and acute issues that are in chronic issues really that we're been dealing with forever in new ways that can give people so much more freedom.
So tell us your story briefly, if
Yeah.
possible. Your story,
Yeah.
and also you've got something that's working for you that I thought would be valuable to share with our audience.
Yeah, wonderful. So 5 years ago, I had a short-lived cocaine addiction. I bought it for the first time. And by the way, I'm also a long-term burner, been going since 1995. I moved to San Francisco in 1990 and jumped right into the rave scene that was exploding then. So I've had a few chemicals in my system from time to time, maybe more than a few. Fortunately, again, as other people said, I didn't really step on the dark side of things too much. It was more, acid and mushrooms and MDMA and things like that. And never really had any issues with them. I mean, like mild things to deal with, but nothing really addiction related. And I'd never really been drawn to cocaine, but I just happened to, get some from someone. And I did a little bit the first night and a little more the next night and a little more the next night. And I ended up doing it for six nights in a row. And cocaine is like, it's I call it like Novocaine for the soul. It like numbs your anxiety so that you don't have to worry about that and you can feel free, like and liberated. I think that's, that's my understanding of its functionality. But what it did for me is it also, numbs my empathy and my, sense of connection with other people. And I already had some issues with that. I'm a little probably, well, not so much anymore, but, growing up in school, I was probably a little Aspergian, a little bit Asperger syndrome, very, very mental, math and science geek, could understand how the universe worked, but not how to connect with people. And so, but over time, I, learned hacks and how to really engage with people authentically, in better ways. And the cocaine really kind of lobotomized those skills. So on the fourth night, I was with a lover, and she was really energetically sensitive, and she recoiled from me during sex. She just literally recoiled, and because she could tell bad things were happening. And I did not reveal to her that I was doing the substance. So 2 days after that, night number 6, I went to a play party, and I was having a wonderful time with a woman that I met there at a sexually open play, event. And we'd been engaging for 45 minutes or so, and then she fell asleep because she'd had too much of something else. It was like probably 2 o'clock in the morning at this point. And I didn't stop. And I said, "Would you like me inside you?" Thinking that might be a good way to wake her up. And she didn't respond. But I put on a condom, and for a few minutes, I penetrated her without her permission. And then she woke up, and people came in the room, and I ended up admitting to raping her to the entire community of 600 people on Facebook. And since then, I've told like over 1,000 people what I did. Fortunately, she received very good care by the community, and later reported that she wasn't carrying any trauma from the incident. So I'm really grateful I didn't, leave that in her experience too much. But it pretty deeply traumatized me in my life. It has been quite a journey, and I experienced, enormous amounts of communal ostracization and the loss of a lot of friends, a whole lot of shame. but I really devoted myself to healing. And I have worked with over 24 different healers and therapists, everything from, classic psychotherapy and addiction recovery specialists, MDMA therapists with a therapist and her partner who does energetic and somatic body work. So all of these therapies kind of at the same time for a full day. That was really magical. Shamanic healing, which was incredibly impactful, and energy healings of various types. And I've really just committed myself to doing whatever it takes to heal whatever would cause me to do such a thing, and whatever would have me do the cocaine in the first place. And what I've come to understand through all this is that basically we're all wounded to various degrees, and we're wounded out of our bodies and living in our heads far too much, trying to figure out how to make a good life and be safe, and how to stop bad things from happening, and repeats of the past and all that. And so the more that I have engaged with these therapies, the more that I've returned to my body. And the most impactful thing I've done through all this is a practice I started 3 years ago. And it's been the most impactful because I've done it more than anything else I've worked with. And I was working with a consent coach. She was like, well, what's your consent? What is your desire? What does your body authentically want? And I was like, I don't know. I only come into it for, food and sex and dancing. Otherwise I'm up here all the time. So, I, invented a practice where once an hour there's a chime that goes off on my phone, and I take 3 breaths into my heart. And it's not my literal heart, it's my heart area. And I just put my attention in the center of my chest, and I just feel my chest expand and contract, and I feel those sensations, and I bring my awareness back into my body. And I have been homeless my whole life, living up here, trying to find, the way home. These are our homes while we're, in this incarnation, and we're all a bit homeless. So this has just brought me home to myself in the most exquisite ways. And I know my true value now. I know my true sovereignty now. I didn't know what that word meant really before this experience. And the best thing about this is that I have regained my intrinsic joy. Joy is our natural state. For those of you who are, more spiritually inclined, you may have heard the phrase Sat Chit Ananda, which is existence, consciousness, and bliss, which are the 3 qualities of our essential nature, of the divine spark that's animating this vehicle. Our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it. This is what the Buddha awakened to. This is what the ancient Hindu sages, which is where this comes from, knew, is that our true self only has those 3 qualities. We exist, we're conscious, and we're full of joy, we're full of bliss. So Yogananda, for example, is the bliss of yoga, or yoga, the bliss access to yoga. So Ananda, for bliss, is our natural state. It's what children have. If you look at children, they're bundles of joy, right? They have joy all the time, except when they don't, but then they fully express themselves and they get back to joy. We used to be just like that. And what happened is that we just got filled with all this information that kept us just consumed up here. And then we got, wounded and traumatized and felt unsafe. So we just moved even more up here. And we just spent far much time up here without any attention to this. And so through doing this, within the first day of starting this practice, so I've been meditating for 15 years. I did 3 10-day Vipassanas in 2005 when I took a year off to travel. 30 days of 10 hours a day of meditation. At the end of those 30 days, I still couldn't keep my attention focused for more than 15 seconds. That's how crazy it is up here, how many monkeys I got running around. So, but over time I practiced, and eventually things got quiet, a little more quiet. But when I started this practice, within a day of starting this, by the next day, I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is wonderful. And within a week, I was starting to get hits of joy. It was like my mind would be going crazy about something, and I'd take 3 breaths into my heart, and it was like slipping into a hot tub of joy. So joy is our natural state. It's the joy of just existence. Look at dogs. They're full of it. That's what they're animated by. It's just the joy of being here. It's our natural state, but it's completely covered over by our mental state, which is, we're all just spending way too much time up here.
Well, that's what we're taught. We're
Yeah.
indoctrinated. We're separate.
We live in this insanely complex world that like takes a whole lot of cogitation to navigate, and a lot of understanding. But so last year I went through a really dark time. A couple of women made some accusations against me, which were a little exaggerated, but they were believed by a whole community because of, I've got this big negative mark against me. And, they had a really negative reaction, and they were out warning people that I was in active danger. And, I experienced a lot more ostracization because of this. And I was in part feeling like, oh my God, my life is over. I'm never going to recover from this. No one's ever going to believe me again. And then I'd take my breath and I'd be like, why do I feel so much joy? So depression and anxiety and joy can't really coexist. And when you learn that you can generate joy yourself, those aspects don't have a whole lot of holds anymore. Nor does addiction. Addictions are compensations for not being able to feel at home in our bodies, for the loss of our authentic sense of joy, for the loss of being able to just feel at home in the world and feel okay. There are substances that we use to compensate for the things that we've gone through, usually, or the brain, whatever brain chemistry that might be off, that doesn't allow us to just feel just okay and at home and to access our joy at will. So I believe this practice can, have a significant impact on addiction as well. So I call it hearthing. And the hearth, is the area around the fireplace. And it's the center of the home. It's the source of where light and heat and energy emanate. And we can build our own hearth within and sit by our own fire just by practicing this extremely simple thing. And so before I turn it over to comments, I just want to invite us all to try it. And I just like to put my fingers on my sternum here to focus. Just take 3 breaths in there and just feel your chest expand and contract, and bring your awareness back into your home. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Damien. Really, so many things that you shared. First of all, thank you for the vulnerability of sharing about the mistake you made and your significant commitment to learning from it and doing repair. And certainly joy, isn't that, as Annie said, we're all seekers. What are we seeking? We're seeking joy. We're seeking bliss. There's a famous line that every heroin addict is chasing that first high because it felt so good. Oh my God, I've never felt this good so before. And so the pleasure center, the pleasure memory center remembers that and chases after it. I love that, just finding ways to create that joy in our life is very, very cool. Curious if Annie or Trish, anything that comes up for you before we move on to our next part of the show. Trish, I see you nodding your head, but you're muted on.
I was sharing videos all over the place, so I didn't want to mess up. Wow, thank you for sharing so vulnerably, Damien. It's a lot, and to share that the cocaine shut off your ability to really connect with that other person, to actually make the right choice, is a really powerful place to own almost immediately too. You were like, oh, and to look at the places, and then I think this is a really key piece to restoration of integrity, or restoring your own inner truth, is to really look at the reasons why we do drugs in general, or the why we do these actions that we do. And one of my big teachings in this world is to really look at, if you want to know what you're manifesting, look at what you already have. Right? Look at what's happening in your life and look at how you're behaving. And because your thoughts and our words and our actions are creating the life that we live. So I think it's really powerful that you chose to take that step and to look at it, and to take the opportunity to choose sobriety, to choose a path, and to really start looking at our beliefs of indoctrination around, men are kind of taught to take what they want. It's just a thing in this world. and to actually act upon that, like it's a really interesting system where we're told not to do something but to also do it at the same time. It's like it's a subtle, we're looking at those systems right now. I'm actually really looking at these layers of belief. So it's really, really, really powerful for sharing your embodiment practices, because that is key to being in your truth, right? It's so key. My business is called Embodied Happiness. Because it is to be embodied, to bring the parts of self and to unite them in, and that's part of the aftercare of detox. Is to find new ways of being that are support what was not there before, that created the desire of the system to go towards something outside of oneself.
Okay. Yeah. So I am going to kind of shift our focus a tad to Reverend Michael Beckwith. But, I want to acknowledge that there's certainly what Damien shared, and Trish, kind of what you just followed up with it. It's an important dialogue. And I invite that dialogue to continue in the chat box. But I don't want to turn, there's so many things we're already dealing with tonight. I don't want to tackle that topic further. But that's certainly, especially the way you framed it, Trish, would be a topic for us to do again, for sure, an entire straight talk on, because I think it's a really powerful topic. I do want to share some of Reverend Michael Beckwith and some Russell Brand, and have more dialogue and answer some of your questions. So I was really blessed when I knew that we were going to do this whole weekend on these topics. I reached out to Reverend Michael Beckwith, who I've known for 40 years, and he agreed to talk about it. So we did an hour-long sit-down, and I'm not going to show the hour. I'm only going to show a little bit of it. I'm actually going to start with the beginning, where he kind of drops in. And if you want to see more of it, you're going to have to go to Saturday Night Alive tomorrow night, and he's going to be on the show. And I'm going to show more, a different segment of my conversation with Reverend Michael Beckwith. If any of you don't know who he is, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith is the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center based in Los Angeles. And he has reached probably at this point millions with his various books, videos, audios. And because I've known him for 40 years, I traveled to Jamaica with him, I've interviewed him a dozen times. He's the real deal. He really is. He's just real. He's at a very high level of consciousness, and yet he's such a real guy. It was interesting, the night that I did my interview with him, he had just gotten off the phone with the police because he had been burglarized 2 nights in a row. And the second night, they'd stolen his bicycle and also some precious memorabilia, including something that his mother had given him that he really, really wanted back. And so I kind of caught him when he was in a very human, dealing with human stuff, and he talks about that, although I'm not going to show that part of the thing tonight. I'm going to show that tomorrow. But he's a beautiful man and a great teacher. And I encourage anybody, if you don't know Agape, look it up. And Sundays, a great way to start Sunday is with Agape service. It's online, it's on Facebook. They do 3 services every day. I'm pretty sure I've hugged Annie Rogers more than once at Agape services. I can remember when I would go with Margot Hope, seeing you when it was over on Olympic Boulevard. Anyway, here is a little segment of Reverend Michael Beckwith and what he has to share on this subject. Thank you very much. Well, we're really wanting to tackle some of the really significant challenges that our tribe is going through. Addiction, of course, domestic violence is way up. Alcoholism, addiction is way up. Suicidal fantasies and even suicide attempts are way up. And so we're wanting to address that, and that's why we wanted to ask you for your thoughts on what we can do in terms of if it's ourselves, if we're challenged by these issues, and what to do when it's someone we love or care about.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we're in a kind of a pressure cooker right now with the dilemma of the polarity of what's happening in the world and the crisis of fear around health and viruses and things of this particular nature, and also a kind of a lockdown. All of those things are allowing people to come face to face with themselves in an interesting way. And so, first of all, where I'm concerned, I think when we are concerned, we always want to have our heart space very malleable, very, very available, so that we have a tremendous amount of compassion for individuals who are going through any of the things that you just mentioned, whether it's addiction, whether it's suicidal fantasies, whether it's individuals who are releasing rage and it's becoming the aegis of domestic violence. We want to hold a space of compassion for everyone that's going through any of that. And I think this whole thing that we're going through as a species right now is a call for compassion. It's a call for us to go probably deeper than we've ever gone before in terms of, what is compassion? When we understand the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion, there's an answer there. And sympathy asks the question, how do you feel? Empathy says, I'll feel for you. Compassion says, how can I serve? How can I alleviate suffering? So we're all being invited to ask ourselves, how can we alleviate suffering? So for everyone who is not going through the aforementioned experiences that you mentioned, we have to keep asking ourselves, how can we be of service? How can we alleviate suffering? And if we live with that question, then we will respond appropriately, moment by moment, to the individuals in our family and to individuals that we come across. Now, the individuals that are actually going through this, if a person is going through a suicidal fantasy or has even attempted suicide, that there has to be a reminder here that life is precious and that everyone has a future. And I think that when an individual is going through this, and I've worked with people over my 40 years of teaching, I always remind them that there's a future here. There's a future. It may seem hopeless and bleak right now, but I want you to begin to think about what you can do tomorrow. And then I want you to think about what you can do the next day. I want you to think about your future. And it's counterintuitive to our mindful practices in which we're trying to stay present and trying to be in the now. But when an individual is suicidal, I want them to think about a future. I want them to think about what they're going to do next week. How they're going to walk in the direction of a purpose or of something that they really, really want to experience in their life. So I generally invite people to think about a future and to write down exactly, to the best of their ability, what they are going to do with their life next week. And then that becomes kind of a to-do list that keeps them thinking in the future. And then secondly, I always want whoever I'm talking to right now, I really want you to know that though it feels like it, you're not alone. That sense of loneliness invades the life of the best people, of people who, have really looks like they have it together on the outside. There's a sense of foreboding and loneliness that takes over people's life. And I want people to come to an understanding that that sense of aloneness, or no, that sense of loneliness can give way to a sense of aloneness, which becomes an opening to really having an encounter with the divine, an encounter with that which you cannot see with your eyes or hear with your ears, but in a moment of crisis, when you're at your wit's end, when things of the external world just aren't working, there's a moment of sheer aloneness where suddenly in the darkness, you actually see that you're not alone. There really is a presence. I can testify to this. This is not religion. It's not a belief system. It's real that each of us are not alone. And sometimes on the precipice of a deep sense of feeling alone, there's an emergence of, oh my God, there's something here. I didn't notice it before because I was busy. I didn't notice it before because I was in my business and I was working my business. I was working my job. I was doing whatever I was doing. But since I can't do that anymore because everything seems to be, I seem to be cut adrift from my normal activities. If we can just sit with the awareness, I have a future. I'm not alone. We could even say that to ourselves. I have a future. I'm not alone. And then from there, we begin to sneak up on the fact that each being on the planet does have a purpose. There aren't any extra people. I don't care what the people say about overpopulation. There aren't any extra people. There aren't any mistakes. There aren't any do-overs from the present. Every being is necessary. Every being is meaningful to the unfoldment of what's trying to happen here. And if we can sneak up on the fact that everyone has a purpose, and the purpose that everyone has on the meta level is to reveal the cosmos or the presence in a way that has never happened before, because we're unique beings, you see. So the aloneness gives way to, there's something here that I haven't been paying attention to, you see. And then I do have a future. And then I matter, I'm significant. I'm not an accident. I have a purpose. So if we ask, if an individual is in the throes of a suicidal tendency, I'm not alone. Sit with that. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I have a future. I do have a future. And I do have a purpose. If we lean into that, little by little, there would dawn on our awareness. We will catch the sweet whispering of life, beckoning us back to ourselves. And oftentimes in our darkest hour, and I don't speak from someone sitting on an ivory tower. I can remember a number of years ago where something had happened in my life. And I remember those suicidal thoughts went through my awareness, and then I thought about my parents. I thought about, how that would affect everyone. And I came back to myself, so I'm not speaking from, some clinical psychological training. I'm speaking from my own life and then my own awareness of the presence that's never an absence. So if one can just kind of contemplate that. And then fourth, if you're in the throes of something like that, please, please, please reach out to anyone. Even if they think you're crazy, just reach out and say, I need some help. I'm having trouble here. Talk to me for a moment, you see. So I think if we move to those 4 dynamics, it goes a long way towards the prevention of crossing a line that one cannot cross. I know you probably want to ask me another question, but what just came to my mind is, at the Golden Gate Bridge, where people sometimes are prone to leap off and try to commit suicide. I was reading an article where, there's a boat there. There are people that work at some of these places, and they try to save people that jump over. And this particular gentleman that was his job, he said that everyone that he saved, they all said the same thing, that on the way down, they said to themselves, this was a bad idea. This was a bad idea. Why am I doing this? And they survived, to be able to say that. So anyone who's in the throes of that, understand that's not your real self speaking. That's the disappointment speaking. That's the part of you that think it's really lost something that can never regain speaking. That's the part of you that's probably been hurt that's speaking. But the real you can heal and get over anything with a little help. Yeah.
Beautiful. 2 things came to mind. One is just I've heard that, I can always show what came to my mind directly. What came to my mind as he was talking at the earlier part was going from the perception of alone to remembrance of all one, that we are all one. And as much as we can, when we're not in a bad place, really, in whatever practice it is, prayer, meditation, oneness exercises, really practice the perception and anchoring in the awareness of our connection to all that is, in whatever form works for a person, then that's an incredible tool to draw upon when we have that inevitable hard time. And hard times will come for all of us. I'd love to open it up to Annie, Trish, Damien, anything that really stood out for you and what beloved Reverend Michael had to say.
I've always got stuff to say. But if someone else wants to go.
Take it away, Trish.
So I'm literally convinced that the highest drive for people to get their needs met, the need for belonging and connection, like that will drive the craziest behaviors. And it's the fear of or the perceived separation that causes us to do crazy shit. Mm-hmm. I've been suicidal before. I literally reached out to anyone and he took me to pizza. And I was like, wow, that was exactly what I just needed, the tiniest bit. It didn't solve my problems at all. It just reminded me that I wasn't alone. Mm-hmm. And that we shared the same birthday. It's just a total random. He's like 10 years younger than me. And he's just like the cutest little boy. He's like the cutest little boy in my life. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cute. Thank you so much for saving my life. And I'm so grateful that Reverend Michael spoke about that, because I think that also drives drug addiction. That also drives, staying in long-term abusive relationships, codependency. It drives so much of our behavior, this fear of separation or this perceived separation. And to recall back that, okay, like reach out to anyone. Even again, what did he say? Reach out to anyone, even if they think you're crazy, and just ask for help.
Yeah.
That was so powerful that many addicted kids or people don't ever choose like, I need help, because it's so shameful. We've made it so shameful to ask for help or to admit that we've made a mistake. And that right there it's like one of the most destructive and socially abusive behaviors that we participate in, is shaming and guilting people. Like, we're fucking messy as humans. What do you say, Scott? How perfectly human. We're messy. We're going to mess it all up, and we're just going to screw off and like step in our own opinionated dog poop. Like, we're just going to do that. And we're going to, okay, I'm just going to say it takes 28 days at least for a very new habit to be changed. It takes longer if it's been running for years. And if you're participating in the social conditioning of, let's say, gender or gender roles, or God, I mean, so many things that I could go off on, that is going to take you a longer amount of time, especially if you are chemically deficient in something, whether it's dopamine or epinephrine or God, I mean, we could just like grab a bunch of things, right? So coming back to the awareness practice or the oneness practices of embodiment. Remember, embodiment, and when you're embodied, the lonely feeling of being human in general isn't there because you're in the body. And then when you're getting help and when you're chemically balanced, you can make rational choices, rather than, like, hey, you know what? I feel so alone today. I'm going to go shoot up with my friends, because that is where I get my sense of connection and belonging. Mm-hmm. So, Reverend Michael, thank you. I'm going to share this out to like the entire world, because that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Thanks. And you know what I also heard in my head? Will he be my grandpa? Anybody else hear that?
Yeah. What you just said about our longing for connection is incredible. And a story I haven't shared in a while, so I don't think you know this story, Trish. When I was teaching in the prison system, teaching nonviolent communication, and we were looking at the universal human needs that drive us, and the subject came up of the need for connection and belonging. And I said, oh, who'd like to share about that? And this kid raises his hand. I remember his name was Chico, and he told the following story. When he was 17 years old, he and a bunch of his friends got high, and they had the brilliant idea to rob a liquor store. And he carried a gun, and they went in and they robbed the liquor store, and they got caught. Nobody got shot. There was nothing, but it was armed robbery. And he was convicted at age 17, started his prison term at 18 of armed robbery. 12 years minimum. Shortly after he got into prison, there were gangs, and he wanted to belong to a gang. And the initiation was, they said, if you want to be part of our gang, you see that guy over there, and they pointed across the yard to some random guy who was part of a different gang. They said, you're going to go over there, and you're going to beat the crap out of him as long as you can. Then his homies are going to jump you, and they're going to tear you apart. Then the guards are going to come, and they're going to have their fun with you. And then they're going to throw you into administrative segregation, which is what in the movies is called solitary confinement. And you're going to lose all your privileges of being able to see visitors, make phone calls, and they're probably going to add time to your sentence. Can you imagine making the choice with all those consequences? And he didn't hesitate. He said, okay. That's how important it is for us to belong. That's how important. Anyway, Annie, what's alive for you?
Well, Integrating this concept with addiction, as you'll notice that the 12-step program has been the way for so many people. And obviously there's two major components to that. One is community.
Yes.
And the other one, well, actually three. Community, there's personal growth, because there's the 12 steps, which creates a personal growth structure, to grow. And the third one is being a giver, having purpose. And the one thing I've noticed about AA people or 12-step people is how strong their community is, and how much they give to each other, how much they fundraise for each other, they go help each other out, they do service for each other. And one of the thoughts that comes up for me is when we get in that space of isolation where it's all focused on us, that's one thing about community is, what can I do for others? Like who else can I help that's worse than me or needs connection? And then all of a sudden we feel amazing just because we've gifted ourselves to someone who needed us even more than we needed them, And when we get outside of that personal awareness of just me and what do I need and does anybody love me, and we think about what is our purpose on serving others and creating community with other people? How can we serve and help other people? It is the greatest high I know. So to me, service is the greatest high I know. When I was insanely working every single holiday and every single Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, everything I could think of, it was because I couldn't think of anything more wonderful or valuable than serving someone, Now, of course, I've been let free of that duty, but it really is, service is such a huge path of joy and love and connection. So that's one of the other side of reaching out from solitude or aloneness to someone else, is also reaching into someone else when you feel that solitude or aloneness, and seeing how you could be of service to them. Because to me, services, I used to want to put t-shirts in our clinic that said service is the new drug, service is the new high, because it's just an incredible feeling to make a difference for people.
You're so brilliantly right. Absolutely. Marshall Rosenberg was an important part of my life and my mentor. And one of his, probably my favorite quote is, the greatest joy in life is contributing to the well-being of another.
The best.
And it's a blessing if we know that, and it's a real tragedy if we don't.
So true. It's the best.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
And I'd also like to just point out that especially Scott has a whole academy to teach you how to empathize with people.
Oh.
And the thing that I really have been just mulling over for the last, 3.5 days, just so you know, I haven't communicated, Scott, just so you know, is that I've been really thinking about the place where all life is suffering, or there is suffering in this life. And that's where we get to share vulnerability. This is where intimacy is created and connected. So when we can be in our own suffering and with another person in their suffering, that is the place of connection. That is a place of vulnerability and intimacy. That to be able to connect to that space. So like, it's, if we can just see those places, because it's like, oh my gosh, my life is so hard and da 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 da. Like, don't get me wrong, life is hard. Like, lots of things are very, very hard. And to be able to say, hey, Annie, I'm having a hard time. Do you have a moment to just hear my hard time? And can I hear your hard time? Because then we get to realize that we're not the only one having the hard time. Not to say like misery loves company. There's a difference between like digging more, but to be actually with that person and creating connection, right? Empathy first.
It's the best.
Empathy first. It's one of the mottos of Love Coach Academy. Okay, we promised Russell Brand, and the perfect segue because Annie talked about the 12 steps. And so we have a couple of videos, but the video I'm actually going to show is Russell Brand's take on the 12 steps. Now, I want to say
I
first,
love this one.
the 12 steps are great. They really are. They're brilliant. And a lot of people swear by them. And you're going to hear Russell Brand swear about
My favorite word.
So this is called Straight Talk. Be prepared. There will be enough F-bombs in the next 8 minutes of this video to keep you F-bombed for a very long time. But
apparently he hasn't had the Scott Catamas talking about using the F word appropriately and effectively.
it's true. I've given Trish and Emily the talk of only use an F-bomb on occasion. Then it really means something. Then it has impact. Trish, I think, has taken that advice more than Emily has. But that's another story.
We love you, Emily.
Let's hear Russell Brand, who has not taken my advice at all, but he seems to be doing quite well. So I can't fault the guy. Here we go with Russell Brand.
First thing, are you a bit fucked? The first thing is admitting that there's some sort of problem. It could be I'm always getting into shit relationships. I'm always getting into jobs and not liking it. I get into continual conflict with other males. I don't have good relationships with my family members. Are you a bit fucked? You know, so as soon as you acknowledge a problem, I think the possibility for change begins, but not without saying, could you not be fucked? That's the second step. Is it possible to not be fucked? 3, are you on your own going to unfuck yourself? Right? That means accepting help. For me, I knew I was a smackhead. It's obvious I was a smackhead. But I came to believe from meeting people that was much worse smackheads than me who had got clean that it was possible to not be a smackhead. But I knew that I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. If we had the answer to our problems inside our own fucking head, we'd have found it by now. If any version of psychoanalyses or whatever it is you're traipsing through to unravel the mysteries of your past, if it was going to be done in solitude, I think we would have happened upon it. This is where this program becomes interesting because it happens collectively as a group. I know that all of you have got stories. I know that any one of you could tell me something about yourself that would make me cry because it's so painful and so beautiful. I know you still carry aspirations. I know that you carry with you the heartache, the heartbreak. I know the 3 a.m. you. The third step, are you on your own going to unfuck yourself? It has sort of mystical and spiritual connotations, i.e. I happen to believe in God. I believe in God, a form of God, not some daft fucking thing written down in an old book. No, limitless consciousness, mysteries, entanglement, the roaring world of coincidence. Step 4 is where it gets a bit fucking admin heavy. Step 4 is this: write down all the things that are fucking you up or have ever fucked you up. Don't lie or leave anything out. That's a hard process. You've probably got things where someone was rude to you at school, broke your heart, made you feel insignificant, inadequate about your body or about your life or about something in you. I fucking did. Loads of things happened to me, but I've catalogued all of it. Fucking hell, it took ages. It was a right ball ache. Wrote it all down. Things that were deep in me that made me feel ashamed and separate from the world forever. Like, I could never be accepted. I'll never be good enough. I'd done that thing. That person said that thing to me. But step 5 is honestly tell someone trustworthy about how fucked you are. What was curious about that is that on my step 4, which is an inventory of all my grievances, or in the parlance of this program, resentments, there were things that were so minor I was embarrassed I could remember them. Minor little things. That person looked, well, Glenn Dainty, sports day, pushed me aside and won. I was 5, could still remember it. And then things that I think, fuck, that was dark, I'd done that shit. Dark things, self-harming things, harm. And when I told the other geezer that I told this to, because as I say, this program is best practiced in communion, he just went, yeah, I've done something like that, that's not that bad. My point is this: that none of us need carry the shame anymore. None of us need live in a pain-based identity anymore. I put it to you that we live with a biochemistry that stimulates fear and desire in order that we may survive. You need fear, get on your fucking toes, watch yourself out on them planes. You need desire to get out there and hunt and procreate. But when you live in a culture that continually stimulates fear and desire in order to make you a better consumer, these biochemical advantages and imperatives become problematic. That's what I'm saying we're living in now. having done this inventory, you'll be ready for step 6. It reveals a lot of fucked up patterns. Like when I looked at my own life, I saw that the way I used to get expelled out of schools was the same way I would get thrown out of jobs years later. The same way that my relationship was difficult with people when I was a schoolboy became difficult romantic partnerships when I was an adult. We've got patterns. And here I will make one of the most important points to you that I can make. You don't choose between working a program and not working a program. You choose between a conscious program and an unconscious program. You are already working a program without question. You are working in the conditioning of your culture, your class, your family, and your school. You are the person that you were told to be, for good or for ill. What this is an opportunity to identify your patterns and your behaviors so that you can form a better aspect of yourself. I feel that we live in a culture that exacerbates and provokes the lower aspects of our nature, the fear, the desire, the lust, in order that we will be good consumers, and ignores the fact that we are altruistic, kind, loving, and sweet. Them things get a little bit lost sometimes. Step 7, are you willing to live in a new way that's not all about you and your previous fucked up stuff? You have to. That is another point in this program where there's a kind of spiritual intersection. Me, I'm a person that does pray and meditate, but for me, all that means is that I don't just live my life on a material level. I don't just think, oh, I'm Russell, I'm going to go to that thing later and talk to a squire, and then I'll be in a car, and that's that. No, I see myself as having a life that's beyond the limited scope of sensual and what do I want to say? Gross understanding. I believe there are subtler energies at work in a human being. You know the coincidences and synchronicities from your own life. You know the mysteries of your own myth. You know the moments where, had you turned another corner, to quote dear George Michael, another addict that we lost, that maybe your life would have been different. You'd have made different decisions. You may never have met him or her. You may never have taken that job or that opportunity. That sense that perhaps we are being guided. That sense that perhaps the same way as our fingerprints are unique, there is some other code, some less easily ascertainable code that is trying to realize itself the same way that an acorn will grow into an oak tree. The same way that there is some knowledge within each seed, within each cell, that it must realize itself. If your consciousness is in attunement with this energy, then I think there are rich, rich possibilities for us as human beings. 8 and 9, step 8, prepare to apologize to everyone for everything affected by your being so fucked up. If you've been a drug addict for any serious amount of time, you've caused some real damage to people. Or if you've been a person that's just put yourself first a lot, you will have caused real damage to people. I did. And part of my journey has been going and making amends, not just because restitution and apology are good, fine spiritual things to do, but also to remind me that I don't do that sort of thing anymore. Now when I feel the casual urge to be dismissive of people, something in me reminds me, don't treat other human beings as a commodity. People don't only exist to serve you. Every single one of us in this room has our own little story, has our own little pain, has our own little journey, and none of us needs to be subjugated into one another's lives. But there's some of us have a tendency to insert ourselves into other people's drama. Some of you are like, oh, why do I always go out of arseholes? And those of us that are arseholes are very grateful for your arsehole attraction. But you may be right. It may be better if you looked at your code, looked at your programming, looked at the kind of relationships you're drawn into. Step 9 is, having made a list of all the people you've damaged, you become willing to make amends to them, unless you making amends would fuck their shit up bad for them. E.g., you don't go, mate, I'm ever so sorry, I've been having an affair with your wife. That was wrong. If that person doesn't know that, you've just made their life far, far worse. It's a program of spiritual growth and development. The final 3 steps, 10, watch out for your fucked up behavior and thinking and be honest when it happens. 11, stay connected to your new perspective. That is an interesting thing, and that's where prayer and meditation become quite important. Like, there will be times in a day when you let go. You know, when you see a cyclist and a cab driver about to have a row in the street, they've let go. They've let go of the connection, haven't they? All that matters in that moment is, I'm going to fucking kill you. But if you were able to talk to them and go, mate, you've got your fucking family, your kids, are you willing to give your life up? There have been moments in my life where I've done it too, where I've gone, I'll fucking put all the chips of my life, I'll put on that, so I'll gambled a lot on you, mate, I'll fucking kill you. And like, for what? For what? For some moment. Like, doesn't mean anything. So the step 11 becomes, with step 10, you're constantly observing your patterns. You're watching your mind work. Oh, look, I'm doing that shit again. Step 11 is you remain connected so that there aren't, you'll notice it. If someone provokes you, check me. I am easy provoked. If I feel men are not being respectful to me, I'm provoked because I'm not a conventional male. I grew up in a very conventional male environment. If I feel intimidated or threatened by men, I feel I have to overcompensate for that. But I know that about myself now, so I'm not entirely governed by it. The 12th step is where you dedicate your life to helping other people, where we unpick the great problem of our age: self-centeredness, narcissism, obsession with self, my hair, my products, this lovely little fucking Alexander McQueen little skeleton thing. I start to look beyond self-centeredness, knowing that it will always be there, but not having it as my coordinate, as my guiding star. My guiding star becomes, are you being kind to anyone? Pause for a moment to think, have you done anything for anyone other than yourself all day today? And if the answer is no, that's a weird thing for a social animal that's meant to live in little tribes, roaming through forests and plains. If all you've done is, I want this, I want that, I want that. No, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. Me. If I don't watch myself, very self-centered little individual. So that's a sort of a bit of a 25-minute précis of how this program works. Anyone can do it. It's fucking easy. You shouldn't do it on your own. But if you're not doing it, you're being subjected to the patterns of your childhood.
There you go. Let's all get recovery from Russell Brand. I actually have been listening to the audio. I got it a while back, and it's Russell Brand. He's brilliant. So what stands out, kiddos?
Lots of truth bombs there.
A lot of truth bombs.
You're at the whim of the programming of your childhood. Yeah. Well, that's psychology in a nutshell.
Yeah, you know what? The nugget that stood out for me just this time is we're all on a program. Are we on a conscious program or an unconscious program? Mm-hmm. Right?
Loved that.
Yeah.
And then you get to have choice, and connection.
Mm.
He cracked me up. That was just lovely.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on my own healing journey with this. Like, I've always felt like a bit of an alien. I'm sure, you guys might relate at times. But, social anxiety, social awkwardness, just feeling like really kind of different. And I kind of noticed what was generating that were my judgmental thoughts about other people and about myself. And those are the separation mechanism. That's how we create loneliness, is by judging other people and judging ourselves and putting up a wall to relationship, to relatedness. And, through this process, especially like coming back to my body, I just now feel so connected with everyone. It's like, I never would talk to, the cashiers at the supermarket or anything like that. They were, like I'd just be in my head thinking my, whatever thoughts and thinking that was more important than what was going on around me and the people around me. And now I pretty much try to have a positive impact on everyone I'm with if I can. And it's wonderful. It's so like a complete shift from who I used to be. And it just feels like this natural sense of kind of gregariousness and connection, like connectedness. And like, I'm just like massively, massively grateful for that shift.
No.
Yeah, congratulations. And, we're all in the midst of it, right? It is true. The motto of our company is how perfectly human. And we're all having perfectly human experience. We're spiritual beings, but we are in animal bodies. And in these animal bodies, we get cravings. We crave food. We crave water. We crave the carnal pleasures. I've heard more than once from pretty wise spiritual teachers that the two things on this planet that are really special are food and sex. And that's why most gurus, most really super spiritual people are either really into food or really into sex or maybe both, because those are the things that are so amazing. Up on the astral plane in heaven, we know we're one, we're one with God, we're one with everything. It's, here we come into this illusion of separation, And in the illusion of separation, kind of something that Trish said, what feels so good is connection. Think about your favorite moments in life. I promise you, and people do these at workshops, make a list of your 10 favorite moments in life. They will all be moments of connection. Making love, playing with your dog, the birth of your child, maybe even the death of a loved one because the connection was so profound. And your most painful emotional moments are always moments of separation, always.
Perceived.
So, what's that?
Perceived separation.
Yes, thank you. Perceived separation, because we are in the illusion of separation. But we're living in this magical time where our scientists have proven what the spiritual guys were saying all along. We're one unified field of ever-changing molecules. There is no blank space between you and Annie Rogers right now. There's no blank space between Trish and Damien. There's just the illusion of blank space in this ocean of ever-changing molecules. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, are you down for one more Russell Brand video and then some final thoughts? Yeah. Sure. Okay. This is the Trish Memorial Russell Brand video. Trish picked this one. So thank you, Trish. I love you so much.
So funny.
Look at that face. Here we go. Take it away, Russell. Oh, let me make sure that I optimized the sound. Yep, I did.
I mean, he's got some really funny ones. I've been really... He gives me lots of compassion moments. He was like, there's this one about ghosting that really delighted me. Like, he talks about, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna precursor this one.
Yeah, please.
I love how he acknowledges his privilege and his own lack of perspective, right? Like, he knows that. But he also talks about coming back to self in most of his videos. Is like, why do we have the judgment and the judgment of, which is the separation? Like, any judgments that are outward facing are judgments within self, tenfold. And so I love the way that he talks about dating and spirituality. And I don't agree with everything he says, but I do love the way that he talks to you on a very human level. He's using his privilege, his wealth, and his fame to really speak to people on their level. And that's why I love that last one, the fuckery one. It's a language that a lot of people use.
Yeah.
So, take it away.
All right. You're giving me the finger again, Trish. Here we go.
Do you have a family member that is an alcoholic or an addict and it's causing you a great deal of pain and you're wondering, how do I support them without enabling them? Here are my suggestions. It is next to impossible to help an addicted person unless they want to be helped. That's a real fact. Another real fact is it's very difficult to help a person when you're very close to them. Say if one of my kids became a drug addict or one of my immediate family, it would be hard for me to be the primary person helping them. Even in my marriage, me and my wife aren't the dominant mentor of one another. Sometimes I say to my wife, you've got to talk to someone else about that because I'm biased. I won't give you good advice. Same for me and her, vice versa. So I feel like with addicts though, I know loads of them. What I do is I go, this is what I know about not taking drugs. You have to admit there's a problem and that it's destroying you. You have to believe it's possible to stop and that there is another way of being. You have to accept help and do things differently. Now, if they won't do those things, then I kind of will go, all right then, well, there you go. Now, that's very difficult when it's someone that you really, really love. If it's your teenage child who you adore or your parent or whatever. But that's the fact, in my opinion. The whole chain people to a radiator, lock them in a room, drive them to a rehab thing, I think it's limited returns. So for complete disclosure, I did have quite an interventionist beginning to my journey in recovery. People did go, you are going into rehab. The man that was my manager at the time was very influential, and the man that ran that rehab at the time, very influential. They really held some space, to use a therapeutic term, for me there. But in the end, it's me who one day at a time did not use drugs because that was suggested. It's me who surrendered. I don't mean me in an egoic way, because whatever energy or power I found within me was granted to me by things that I can't begin to understand. But what I'm saying is, without my willingness, there's no way I could get clean. It's not my parents' fault that I took drugs, and nor is it your fault if your children take drugs, far less if it's one of your parents. So what you say to them, this is one of my phrases: I will help you to change, but I will not help you to stay the same. If you want help staying the same, i.e. give me some money, no chance. If you want help changing, I will help you to change. But you have proven that you are not the right person to come up with those ideas, because look at the ideas you come up with. So we're going to be getting those ideas elsewhere. Then you don't try and be in the nomenclature of 12-step recovery, their higher power. You find someone else. If it's a person that's got a problem with drugs, find someone who doesn't take drugs. If it's a person if you're a person that you're concerned about drinks too much, find someone who's stopped drinking too much. Or whatever the problem is, find someone who stopped doing it and say, can you help this person, my dependent, my whatever it is? They'll do it because they have to, because essentially addiction is the call. The destruction through addiction is the call that the material world is never going to work for you ever again. It's over. You have to find spiritual solutions. You can find a measure of happiness with a material life. But I mean to say, even if I don't mean religious, I mean sort of spiritual, as in your inner life must be well regarded. Your self-care must be monitored. The things that you value must be scrutinized, and help must be sought. A path must be found and then walked. But the fact is that enabling, as the word suggests, means that you make them able to continue on with their drug use. So sometimes the very definition of tough love is required. Like, listen, I can't communicate with you. You're not getting no more money out of me. No, you can't stay at this house unless you commit to change. I will help you to change, but I will not help you to stay the same. That's what I've learned from it, from being around them, that they have to become teachable. And if they're not teachable, they will carry on that path, and you have to let them, because you are not God. So, and that's a horrible thing to accept, not being God. I'm still struggling with it. But for now, I've got this wonderful Technicolor dream shawl, and that's, it's enough for Joseph, and it's enough for me. Hello, I'm doing these new videos more frequently now. Please hit the notification button at the end of this video, because then you'll get a little bell when I post a new video. And I'd like you to get a little bell when I post a video. Then I can, I don't know, be buzzing away in your pocket. Sounds like I'd be like a little pocket mosquito. Anyway, subscribe, click the bell, because I want more people to watch the YouTube videos. You specifically.
Wow.
You, Trish, he was talking to you.
Wow.
He's wanting to ring your bell, your little bell.
Like the little mosquito in my pocket.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
All right, well, this is the part of the show where we all kind of give our little final thoughts. I did notice way back, there was a question for you, Annie, about if your patches, they are for people dealing with meth.
Mike's, well, again, I also want to reiterate, especially after hearing Russell Brand, that NAD is a tool. It's not replacing your path or anyone's path, right? And it's so true that if it's not someone's willingness or desire to quit, or it's not their time to quit, I always say to the parents, listen, the best I can give you is you're going to see Johnny back the way you love and used to see him. That's not to mean that he's not going to go use again and overdose, but at least I can give you that moment, right? Because that's the truth of it. NAD will never do it for anybody. They all have to do it for themselves. But as far as meth go, my personal experience with meth and with detox and with NAD is I use the analogy, it's like a nail that pops up on the board. It's very easy to detox meth, especially in an environment where you have some control over. the access to things like that. It's one of the easier ones to detox off of. But if you don't get the NAD literally every week or every 2 weeks, more than any other drug, it has this sort of ability to sort of pop back up, and you got to knock it back down, and the NAD is just a holding pattern so that they can change lifestyle, change habits, change their mind, have a spiritual revelation, have some kind of shift, have lifestyle changes, environment change, something, right? NAD is just a tool, a really effective tool, a really powerful tool, but it never replaces the soul's journey. But with regard to meth, I find that it's an insidious type of infection. I call it an infection because a lot of times addiction is more like a parasite infection to me. And it has its own thoughts, it has its own plans, and it pops back up. So if the NAD is used in a very intensive way ongoingly, it gives you a window, an opportunity to make some changes, or for them to make changes, or for them to at least know it's possible to feel normal again. And if that's all I do sometimes, if that's all we can accomplish, is someone can know that it's possible to feel normal again, and that there is a self outside of drugs, that's huge. That's really huge, because it's like an infection where you're so used to it that you don't know that you can exist without it. So we show people that it's possible to exist without it, and that if you do take care of your health and you do make lifestyle changes and do the things you need to do, you can make it lifelong. So that's my thing about meth, is they got to keep doing it. They got to keep if they're using NAD as the tool, it has to be, they have to stay on it for a period of time until they can make that transition.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to remind everybody that to learn more about this really incredible new opportunity that Annie has for us to raise our NAD, to feel better, to have some support, to make that shift we want to make, go to www.nadtherapy.com, nadtherapy.com, and or call her at 310-853-8855. Does that go to you, Annie, or does that go to someone else?
It goes to a general line that forwards to our phones. If we don't answer it, then it's it'll go into a virtual assistant.
Okay, cool. Or you can email nadconcierge, nadconcierge@gmail.com. And if you want more Annie, come to Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe tomorrow night. She should be one of our keynote speakers. So you get more Annie, you'll get more Russell Brand, you'll get more Reverend Michael, you'll even get a little more Scott Catamas. Damien, tell us, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I've been dwelling on the connection between, our traumas and the things that keep us from being our whole self, and awakening, like enlightenment, like how do we, like the realization that we are actually a part of everything, the realization that we're connected to the universe, that we are the universe, rather than this solely isolated bit, that this individual self with all its like concerns and wants and needs. And I had a realization about the Buddha's enlightenment, that if you haven't heard basically the story goes that when he was born, his father received a prophecy from a wise man who told him that your son will either be a great king or a great spiritual teacher. And at the time, the only spiritual teachers were monks living in the forest on roots and berries and twigs, So the king was like, well, I don't want that life for my son. So he surrounded him with opulence, and allowed no side of suffering into his experience. So until his 20s, like he was married and had a kid, Siddhartha Gautama, who would become the Buddha, before he really experienced human suffering. And he went outside the castle walls or whatever to the city, and he saw a dead person for the first time, and a sick person, and an old person. He was like, what is this suffering? What is this that afflicts like everyone I know, like the all people? And he left his entire life behind to go and discover that. And he was able to focus his will and concentrate so deeply on that and give up everything else, that he was able to reach enlightenment. But the necessary, now apparently, he had many reincarnations before that in preparation for that one. But the thing about that incarnation that enabled and allowed for his awakening to happen is the fact that he's one of the least traumatized humans there's ever been. So our traumas are the greatest barriers to our awakening. And, in the Eastern tradition, they're called samskaras, these mental defilements, these habits of the mind that we have to work through. And, in ancient times, you had to just sit and sit and sit, and eventually they would dissolve. But now with the West's, optimization, focus on the optimization of the individual and of direct healing technologies, we're bringing so much to the equation of how to awaken. But it really is through first awakening to healing our traumas and coming back in touch with our true authentic self that allows us to then awaken. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Damien. And yeah, there's a lot of wonderful ways to work on your trauma. And there's a lot of wonderful love coaches that I happen to know who can help you with that. And one of those love coaches happens to be right here, and she can show you all about enlightened happiness. Embodied happiness.
I will never say that I'm enlightened. I am a practicing human practicing humaning. Whoa. My entire practice is really based in compassion. And what I mean by compassion is understanding the drives. Now, if we can really drop into each practice, each person is like, hey, Scott, where are you at? Like, I can see you're having an emotional reaction. Can we drop into what you're feeling? Can I actually just sit in your pain with you? Get to where what your wants, needs, and drives are, and just help you self-source that or actually communicate that with the other person while also hearing their humanness as well, because that's, I think, the key thing to most of all. Okay, the things that I'm learning, I'm just gonna give you a moment. The things that I'm learning about humaning is that everybody just wants to be heard and connected to. We're all 7.8 billion realities on this planet, and we all just want to know that we're loved for us and connected. So if I can just take your wherever moment that you're in and learn the skills and tools of Love Coach Academy and some other things that I've developed over the course of my life thus far, and to just drop in and give myself compassion, to acknowledge that I am still lovable and I can source all of the things that I need, even though I've had trauma, even though I've had parents that behaved like whatever, or friends that were blah, 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 that I can be loved this way. And I can also teach other people to love me and love themselves, even though. So that's the entirety of my practice, with a little dance and a lot of breath work. And
it is the path to radical self-acceptance. And it starts there with you choosing to work with Trish. And Trish, do you have available, because I know sometimes you have coaching available and sometimes your dance card is full.
I'm completing a couple cycles with clients as of, I am open now. As of like next week, my availability is significantly more open. You can reach out to me on Facebook at Trish Wright Loves with a WRIGHT, Trish Wright Loves. You can find me on the Self Love Show. You can find me on the website. You can find me. You can also reach out to Scott if you want to get a third party involved.
I am not available for clients at this time, sorry. But I definitely can encourage people to go to Trish or to go to the Love Coach Academy. And again, just a reminder, her page is embodied-happiness.com. embodied-happiness.com. We'll go to it one more time.
And if you're not, just on a side note, that if you know that Love Coach Academy is the work that you want to do and you want to have a connection, I can help you find the right love coach for you if I'm not your particular flavor.
So, a way to do that, everybody, is if you go to our website, lovecoachacademy.com, and right away you'll see there's like this little quiz to take. It takes like a minute. It's a little survey. And you start the survey and we learn about you. We learn that you're single, and we learn that you're dating, and we learn how long it's been since your last long-term relationship, and we go on and on. We answer, it takes really about 60 to 90 seconds. And then we know, oh, what would be perfect for you would be Tori, or, I think Jessica, or, what, Paul Sterling, or whatever it may be. So that's a wonderful way to learn about Love Coach Academy. And if you fill out the survey, you get a free consultation with one of our love coaches, one of the ones that we think is the right one for you to talk to. So that's the thing to do. All right, a couple of other things I just want to present. We are really serious about going down this track of helping people to understand about addiction, recovery, etc. And so I just want to give you a taste of what's going to happen tomorrow night. Winston and Trish will be watching Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe.
In depression, that is a cauldron of transformation. Something is dying and something is being born. Ask, what is being born in me right now in the midst of this death? What is being resurrected in the midst of this crucifixion? What is rising in the midst of this phoenix dying? What's trying to happen? We ask that question. I'm telling you, an answer will come.
Yes.
An answer will come.
We are here to provide support. And that's why we're doing a very special edition of Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe on May 22nd. I've invited some of the people I have the highest of respect for to come in and talk about the best tips, tools, and practices for crisis intervention. So please join us. Highlighting our evening is going to be someone I have the greatest respect for that I've known for a very long time, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith from Agape International. Also, as my co-host is TJ Woodward, who is a brilliant author and teacher. He wrote the book Conscious Recovery. We're going to have select video excerpts from Gabor Mate and that wily rascal Russell Brand. We've also invited other leaders in the field, including Roland Williams, Annie Rogers, yay, Leland Holgate, and Jerry Anderson. For our musical support, I've invited people that have a strong connection to these issues, including Johanna Beekman, Valerie Romanoff, and Austin Lillisey. Of course, Deborah Giusti and I will be co-hosting along with TJ. So please join us on Saturday night, May 22nd, for a very important edition of our show. Thank you for watching. Yeah, so please join us. And then final announcement, a week from tonight, we will be back here as always with Straight Talk. And we're gonna have on two of the people that you just saw, Roland Williams and TJ Woodward, really talking in depth, kind of the way that Annie did tonight, about their organizations, wholehearted.org and TJ's amazing work. He wrote a book called Conscious Recovery. He wrote another book called A Conscious Life. He is a coach I've worked with. I love TJ. He's fun. He's brilliant. So join all four of us next Friday night, same time, same channel, 7:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And if this is valuable for you, please share it with your friends. Come to Saturday Night Alive tomorrow. Post it on my Facebook page. I'm the only Scott Catamas on the planet. I'm public. You can find the promo video you just saw. You can find the posters. Share tonight's video with your friends. Share tomorrow night. Invite people. Have a watch party. Let's really, there's so many tools that we've all learned. The joy that Damien talked about, Annie's tools, the importance of genuinely caring about others and showing service. Please share this out. We've all heard all of us saying different ways, including Russell Brand. We all need to come together as a community and support each other. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for being with us. And yeah, really powerful show. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.